and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. This is part 3 of my horse painting series, and in this video we're going to work on adding all the fine details to the horse's eye and to his muzzle and on his neck. If you want to follow along with traditional materials, check out part 1 in this series where I have a list of all the paint, canvas, and brushes that I use. The app that we're going to be using is Infinite Painter for Android. And I'm going to go ahead and continue using the Vince or the Leo brush to add some of the details to the horse's face. And so here I'm working on adding some highlights and showing the bone structure along his nose and under his eye there. And I'm using just kind of a really light brown color, and if you're following along traditionally you can use burnt sienna and some white acrylic gesso. We just want a really light brown color for now, and you want to go ahead and make sure that you smudge it in and have really soft edges because we don't want any hard edges for these details. And here I'm working on the nostrils, and I'm just working on the general structure of the nostril there and adding the same light brown color, and also on his lower lip and along on the edge of his nose. And you want to just go ahead and smudge those in as well. You want all soft lines there. You want these highlights, but you don't want harsh edges because this is a animal, and so you don't have things that have sharp edges like an architectural building would do. So you want soft edges when you're working with animals. And then I'm adding some dark to his upper lip there, and that just separates the lips out. And also adding some dark brown under his neck there, and working on the jawline a little bit and making sure, of course, that I've smudged it in. And you can use a burnt umber color if you're following along traditionally, and your number 3 round brush. And if you're working with acrylics, you can go ahead and just smudge this with your finger or a paper towel. But you just want to go ahead and make sure that the lines are soft. And then I'm adding some more highlight on the jaw. And you want to go ahead and add a little bit of some dark under the neck, and you just keep on doing this. This is going to be how you add the final details to the horse. You just keep working on these refinements. Here I'm adding a little bit of the highlight color, and you can use cadmium orange light with white acrylic gesso and some burnt sienna if you're following along with your acrylics, and then smudge it in. I'm adding some more highlight on his neck, and you just look at your photo reference to see where all these highlights go, and you want to go ahead and make sure that you get these smoothed in because we don't want to leave lines, because this is an oil painting or an acrylic painting and not really a sketch. And I'm working a little bit more and adding some highlights that I see on his jaw there and blending those in a little bit. And I'm just looking back and forth between the photo references because the one that is darker is sort of the true color of the horse, but I have the other one really lightened, the other photo really lightened, so that I can see all the details of the veins and the bone structure that is on the horse's head. Here I'm adding a little bit more of the dark on his head by his ears, and adding a little bit of some light gray color, and you can use burnt sienna with ultramarine blue and white acrylic gesso if you're working with your acrylics to get that kind of brownish gray. Now we want some grays on this horse, but we kind of want them to sort of be in the brown color family. So I'm going ahead and smudging all that in. Every line that I put down, I smudge in. And then I'm working a little bit more on the structure around his ears there and above the eye. And you want to get all this done before you put the mane on, because you want to get the form and the correct highlights there, because you might not cover all of it with the mane. So you have to be very thorough there, and just go ahead and finish it all out before you add the mane. It will be sort of the last thing that you add. And so I'm just kind of smudging that out, and I want to go ahead and work a little bit on his markings there, and I'm sort of underpainting it right now. And you can use dioxazine purple with white acrylic gesso to do the underpainting of the mark. Will eventually make it really bright because it's in the sunlight, and so it's going to show up. So I'm just working on the crescent shape, and I don't want the edges to be hard either. You want to go ahead and soften the edges on it as well. And I'm adding a little bit more of a lighter color here, and you can use white acrylic gesso with some cadmium orange to get sort of a really light color there. And then you want to go ahead and work a little bit more on the structure around his eyes and on the top of his head. And so I'm adding some dark color, a burnt umber color, if you're following along with your acrylics. And you can use your number 3 round brush for all these details. And you just want to go ahead and kind of smudge it in, but again, you want to follow the photo reference and see where all these lights and darks are. And I'm adding a little bit of some blue gray color to show sort of reflected highlights here. And you can use ultramarine blue with maybe a touch of burnt sienna and white acrylic gesso, just to kind of keep the same colors. You kind of, when you're working with acrylics, you want color continuity. So you kind of use all these colors. You use browns and burnt siennas and burnt umbers, but you can mix them with different colors to get lighter colors or darker colors, but you want sort of them all to be in the same family, and that just kind of helps all your colors blend together well in your painting. And here I'm adding a little bit more of that bluish gray, and I'm just adding smaller details here for the veins and the little hairs that are going to be on the horse's upper lip there. Horses actually have little bitty whiskers on their lips, so you want to go ahead and show that. And then smudge them in again. You want them to look soft. You want to show them, but you want to make sure that the edges are soft because he has hair, and so you want to kind of make everything look soft. And just go ahead and smudge that in around his mouth and on his muzzle there, and around above his eyes. I've added a little bit more of some gray color there. That just shows the bone structure that's on top of his head and around his eyes there, and a little bit on his neck. And you just keep adding these places, these little highlights, but they get smaller and smaller as you go. You add less and less paint, and they make a smaller and smaller detail, but you still need them to show the veins and the structure on the horse's head. And they still need to be soft because you don't want any hard lines there. And so you just want to kind of blend the edges around his markings, the crescent shape, and you just keep going back and forth and adding darks and lights. And it's kind of like when you do clouds, you add darks and lights in the clouds, and you're doing that here on the horse's head. I mean, that's sort of the whole point of painting, is contrast, darks and lights for your paintings. So you add darks and lights on the horse's head, and that shows the structure. And that's just the way you paint. It's dark against light. That's sort of the way that you make things look three-dimensional. So this is the end of my horse painting, part 3. And in part 4, we're going to go ahead and add the final details and add the mane. So if you're interested in seeing how to end up this series, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.